Chris, thanks for sharing some time with us to talk about the Bendigo Chamber Music Festival. I can't imagine what it's been like for you over the last 8 to 10 months trying to negotiate COVID-19 and planning a festival of this nature. Can you take us through some of the things you've had to deal with in getting this festival off the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anyone who's been running any sort of events over the last 12 months, it's definitely been a learning curve. And I think we continue to see that it's a learning curve here. In early January, we all hoped that the COVID was going to be completely gone, and but we still have to, 3 cases today, so that's a positive situation. It's been interesting, obviously. The inaugural concert festival had completely had European artists, so part of Chamber Orchestra of Europe, and plus as well Australians, leading chamber musicians. So this year it's going to be an all-Australian affair, which is exciting because we have so much great talent here in Melbourne. But yeah, we've had to adapt, but that's what we all have to do at the moment, I think, in a 2020, 2021 world.
I was talking to Daniel DeBora about the festival, and we mentioned the inaugural festival was in fact only in 2020, and it seems like so much longer ago than that.
Completely. I think for everyone, the last 12 months has felt like an eternity. In some ways. So, I just can't wait to do it all again because in some ways, 2020 February feels like a long time ago or almost like a dream. So I just can't wait to get back on the Capitol stage and start performing music that we love.
I adored what you did in the last festival. It was such a privilege to be there and see so much of what you managed and Howard Penny, as your co-director, managed to put together. Can I just take a slight detour and talk about your commitment to involving the Bendigo community in this before we talk about the main stage events? What were some of the things that you did in the last festival that ticked that box and saw that passion of yours fulfilled in involving people outside the main stage artists?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when we sat down to work out this festival, excuse me, we didn't want just to have a sort of a helicopter festival, where we have all these amazing artists. They all fly in to Bendigo, perform for 5 days and then leave. We wanted to have a proper, a real impact. So Howard and I are both very passionate on education and community engagement. So we worked and we had 54 different educational events in 2020, working with primary schools and high school students and special need schools. Really focusing particularly on, in the primary school world, those schools that have a low socioeconomic, not going to the primary schools necessarily that have 400 children, but going to the primary schools that have 12 or 16 from prep to year 6, because they're the ones that don't necessarily get access to the music.
So you would have gone quite a way out of town and into the region to reach those sort of schools, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just us, but Acadia Winds were up helping us with the educational program in 2020. And they were crisscrossing the city of Greater Bendigo and even, dare I say it, going a few kilometres outside the city of Greater Bendigo, but in that big Bendigo catchment area. And, the photos were amazing to see the positivity and the joy of these children having, a positive first-time experience to classical music in their classroom or in their school.
And as you and I both,
very cool.
As you and I both know, that can be just so life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to see, there's no negative preconception about classical music as well. So that, they're just so engaged about, oh my God, that is a bassoon, that's a clarinet, and how the interaction works, whereas we, I suppose, go, oh yeah, that's a bassoon, or, we take it for granted. But for these children, you could see the joy on their faces, which was really, really cool.
And as a lover of choral music, I was really touched that the festival in 2020 managed to have a choral component too, with choirs from Adelaide, Melbourne and Bendigo.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the really big things in 2020. Unfortunately, 2021 isn't going to have that choral element, just because, flying 50 or 60 people in from 3 different states to sing together is perhaps not part of the COVID-19 plan,
Of course.
the safety plan. But that was something very special, and we have a plenitude of choirs. As soon as it's safe to do so, is very keen to come back and do it, because there was friendships made between Adelaide and Bendigo of the choir members who have still been writing to each other, and sending emails, making sure that they're okay over these last 12 months. That's really cool.
And that really touches my heart too, having on a personal level, having just in the last few months moved house from Adelaide to Bendigo. So I love that contact.
It's a nice symmetry, isn't it? This year we're going to work with a lot of the amateur chamber groups in Bendigo. That's a way that we can continue to give back to the community and connect with the community and help drive that community instrumental scene. So that'll be really special to be able to get some of our fabulous artists to work with the chamber groups of Bendigo Symphony. And also we'll still have a community featured concert on the Saturday at 2:00, which will be still at the cathedral, but instead of a large participation, the fabulous Kelvin Bowman's going to come up and showcase the fabulous new organ in the cathedral, which will be great. So that'll be a very easy access, low priced ticket, so that the community can hopefully come together and celebrate their cathedral and the organ and get involved with Bendigo Chamber Music Festival. Even if you don't want to attend all 15 concerts, then you can come along to that one on a Saturday.
Brilliant. One thing I saw in the program on the website was the Strike a Chord prize winners concert on the Saturday morning. The prize winner from the Music of Viva Australia's, and I love this, Lockdown Legends competition. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when Howard and I were debriefing as we drove back last year, we were looking at what worked and what didn't work and how we expand. And one of the things we were chatting about was the fact that, we were able to support primary school, high school students and the amateur world in Bendigo, but we weren't able to present anything, and in our main presentation we had ANAM Australian Youth Orchestra, but we didn't have that high school element, being showcased on the main stage. So we chatted to Paul Gadea and Hal at Music of Viva and said, well, you guys are having this national high school competition. Why don't we can give the winners an educational outcome, a performance outcome, which, Graham, as you and I know, you learn so much in the studio or the school, but there is a whole breadth of new education that you learn actually when you're in the moment performing in front of an audience. It's a completely different learning experience. So we chatted to them, and it'd be great to be able to showcase two groups, one the Scotch Horn Trio and the Eureka Quartet, which is a very young group of people that are taught by Robin Wilson, who's attached to the Australian National Academy of Music. So, yeah, that's an exciting new element, and I'm really looking forward to hearing them.
Fantastic. One of the things that strikes me too about your involvement in the festival is that I can't imagine that you get much sleep, because seeing you last year, not only as festival director and more often than not the compere/MC of most of the concerts, but you were playing in virtually every concert. And I think some people, knowing you as the organizer of this, forget that you're also an active cellist and involved at the highest level of performing with all of the performers. I've just gone through the program and looked at the things that you're playing in, quite apart from all the things that you have to organize. Can you talk to us about how the rehearsal schedule for such a festival of this works? Because Daniel DeBora was telling us that it's sort of almost like a giant jigsaw puzzle that has to be put together to make sure that people don't have to be in two places at the same time. But for you having to actually organize it, and Howard as well, it must be a bit of a nightmare, surely.
Yeah, look, it's definitely a juggle, and it takes, I think we're up to version 8 of the rehearsal schedule at the moment. That's also something that Howard and I have sort of learned as well. we of course do Sanguine Estate Music Festival together as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to look, when you're putting together programs, and choosing pieces, you do learn that you need to have the rehearsal schedule in the back of your mind when you're choosing works as well. If you choose every work has 2 violas in it, well, then you're never going to be able to rehearse 2 things at the same time,
right.
That sort of stuff. But we sit down and allocate how much rehearsal time we think each piece needs. So we start on the Saturday. So we've got Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We've got 4 days before we go up to Bendigo to start putting it all together.
That's in Melbourne.
That's in Melbourne.
Right.
With some works expected to be pre-learned
yes.
before you sort of come to the rehearsal period. That's, for example, the Rathdown Quartet, has to obviously have their recitals sorted before they enter into the fray. And then, each work, how much time we need, and then you work out which works, large works, can be rehearsed simultaneously. So, for example, the Schumann's piano quartet can be rehearsed against the Beethoven piano trio because it's different players, and then that becomes a block. And then you just sort of, as Daniel said, build the puzzle.
And then you have to then be aware that you might be able to work something out in theory, but then when you look at it, you realize the same player's been playing for 10 hours in a row. So you need to actually work out individual players' workloads over a day, I imagine.
Completely. So once we've got the general, and then we break it down by player. So then you have a look and you make sure. We've already done a by player breakdown because we make sure that there's an even split within the artists.
Right. Yes.
And the artists will of course say, Mendelssohn octet, please do not put me on the 3rd violin part again. I've played that so many times. Or can I play the Beethoven Opus 1 No. 1 piano trio because I love that part. So you have that, and then so you work out what everyone's playing, and then you alongside that you put the rehearsal schedule, individual breakdowns, and sometimes it does require picking up the phone and saying, hey guys, can we just swap you in and or out of that piece, because you realize they are playing 14 hours a day, including 6 concerts, and you wonder by the end of it, perhaps you might be a bit tired. So
yes.
Particularly this year, because being COVID safe, we're having 2 performances of the evening concerts. Like Howlett made a point, there's a limitation if he has to perform 2 Schumann piano quartets, which is a very, intense work. There's a limitation to how much he can do throughout the day if he's going to get to the 8:30 performance and,
yes.
still be at top form, and vice versa. David Griffiths, said the same thing. It's like, with clarinet, I do run out of chops at some point.
Yes.
So
it's really a house of cards for you, isn't it? But it must be fun in some respects because you're playing with such wonderful, I use the term in inverted commas, such wonderful music, such wonderful artists, such a wonderful event. And, the result certainly in 2020 spoke for itself.
Yeah, look, I can't wait. I just can't wait to get back on the stage and start performing with these friends. And there's a certain buzz, Graham, that you get because, it's come from a concept that you've had,
yes.
And then I chatted to Howard about it and said, Howard, Sanguine's sold out every year and, it has a 50% wait list to get in. Why don't we change Bendigo? Well, let's make a big festival in Bendigo as a statement. And you go from that idea, to an Excel spreadsheet, which has both, budgets and budgets, marketing plans, people that are coming, all that sort of stuff. And then you take that to a next level, which is the next step, which is you get all the parts and start practicing and yes, maybe realize how many pieces you programmed yourself in and go, I didn't think that one through completely, did I? And then it's always the slightly mad scramble to the end, and then you perform and you see all the joy of the people sitting in that venue, because you've played the cello and because because you've made that decision, to do that. Everyone's come to Bendigo having a great time, and that's something really, really special about that.
Can I talk about one aspect of the programming from last year that's carried over to this year, which is the Beethoven string trios? It was last year you were involved with Sophie Rowell and Tobias Breda in performing all three of the Beethoven Opus 9 piano string trios.
Yes, that's correct.
Then that's carrying on this year with the earlier Opus 3. Can you just tell us about the Beethoven string trio? Is it an obsession?
No, I think it was just a joy. It was one of those. Toby came down from Sydney for a 48-hour period because the Opus 9s were put into that category of had to be pre-learned.
Mm-hmm.
And Toby literally just crashed on my couch, and Sophie came round, and we just played the string trios 10 hours a day for 2 days straight, and just because we had to learn them before the rehearsal period started. So that was about a week before it started, because I think in the rehearsal period, we really had 1 3-hour bracket and one couple of sound checks. So it had to be pre-learned, and we just had so much fun together. So when Howlett, so Sophie Rowell and Tobias and Daniel DeBora are sort of like our core. They came last year, and they'll come this year, and they'll come next year, all that sort of stuff. So when I was chatting to Sophie and Daniel and Toby, I said, you guys are core players, how would you like, what would you like? What would you like to showcase? And Sophie and Tobes both messaged straight away and said, can we do another string trio? Can we keep that fun going? Because we just had so much fun playing together. But also, we actually, not actually, and we'll talk about this a bit actually, because we're taking the conversation concert on a Thursday, and I'm leading the conversation about the string trio. And that was also, we decided to do the talk on it because we were surprised as musicians how much people loved the string trio. It was mentioned a huge amount of times in the feedback forms. And even though we know it's great music, we were a bit blown away by that, because we were like, there's some preconception, I think, that a string trio isn't as good as a string quartet, because the string quartet is so string quartet is the absolute pinnacle of chamber music. It's the holy grail. So we enjoyed it. We thought, well, by gosh, lots of people have enjoyed it as well. Let's do it again, and let's start unpicking the genre as well. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun, and it's a great impetus to remind me that I need to put together that conversations concert and write my topics.
Well, I'm hoping that at one stage you'll tackle the Mozart string trio, the Great Divertimento, which is certainly one of my favourite works, and one I played back in my past life as a viola player. And that's a massive piece. So I hate to ask you this question, but is there anything that stands out for you just on a personal level musically from the festival that I think you probably can't wait to play any of the concerts, but is there one that stands out?
As a player, I can't wait to play the Mendelssohn Piano Quartet again, which is in the opening evening. It is a cracking piece of music. Daniel, I doubt Daniel will have said he's looking forward to it, because it's a piano concerto with 3 string parts attached to it.
His words were that it's fiendishly difficult or something along those lines.
I'm really looking forward to that. We played that before. Daniel and I played that before, and I just couldn't wait to program that again. And put that in. And also, I'm really looking forward to the Sook's Serenade, which is actually the closer. Joseph Sook is one of those composers that is very rarely performed, but he was an extraordinary musician and extraordinary composer, and really put up there at the same time as Dvorak, but it's just not performed enough. But
and we're hearing the piano quartet earlier too, aren't we?
Yes, as part of the Opus 1 concerts. That's the piano quartet is 18 minutes of absolute power and everything you expect from that world. So I'm looking forward to this, to bookend. Maybe I'm looking forward to the start and the finish, Graham. I'm not sure, but those two are 2 works that I particularly love.
Chris, it's been wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time, and we're looking forward to the festival immensely. And we can't wait to hear it all happen on stage here in Bendigo.
Absolutely, can't wait to be there. And also, ladies and gentlemen, if you can't make it, also it's worth to note that they will also be broadcast on Melbourne Digital Concert Hall. So if you don't feel comfortable coming into the theatre or you can't make it, always do jump online and you can watch it from the comfort of your own sofa and your own living room.
That's a brilliant development. We'll make sure people know about that. Thanks so much, Chris.
My pleasure.